Hello, I know you called me in here today because you wanted to discuss our options in relation to how we can really start to mitigate this risk that we have with the foreign currency exchanges, especially in relation to how we're buying vitamins from Mexico. And really, what we're doing is we're paying them in pesos, and so we carry this risk that when they're sending us these bills, by the time we get around to paying them, the foreign currency could be either stronger or weaker in relation to our US dollar, and then we're dealing with some either losses or gains in relation to that. And so, what are ways, especially we can get rid of those losses? I think, especially, is what you're interested in, why you asked me to look into this. So, currently, we're not, we have nothing in place to mitigate this risk. And so, that's obviously a problem that I think we don't want to continue with. So we have a few options when it comes to that. And the two options really are we can either deal in forward contracts or we can deal in these option contracts, foreign exchange option contracts. And there are two different options that both have positives and negatives. But I think especially what we dealt with in the last year is that the peso in relation to the US dollar was relatively stable for a while. It was fluctuating in between about 18 to 20 pesos per US dollar. But more recently, I think especially with these rumors of trade wars and the political climate between America and Mexico has kind of deteriorated. We're dealing with higher fluctuation. So, just in the last 3 months, the peso strengthened in relation to the US dollar and spiked up to 21 and then dove back down. And right now is around 18 and a half. And so that large fluctuation just within a 3 month period shows we're dealing with a lot of fluctuation, which would lead to a lot of potential greater losses or gains in relation to this foreign exchange. So the first option would be the forward contract. And the forward contract is something that is really going to be a safe bet. It's going to be something that we lock in. So we get this contract ahead of time. We get it when we get in these invoices, we would get these forward contracts and we would lock down a rate that we are going to buy the peso at in the future when we go to pay this contract. So if it's 18 and a half now, perhaps the contract would be for 19 or 18. And we lock that in now. And then when we get to the point where we need to pay that invoice, that's exactly the rate we pay it at. So that way, if we buy it at 19%, at 19 pesos to one US dollar, then if the peso strengthened a lot, maybe spiked back up to 21 pesos, and the US dollar weakened, we wouldn't have that loss of having to pay more because the US dollar weakened. The negative to that is that if the peso were to dramatically weaken and the US dollar were to strengthen, we would lose out on that potential gain because we'd actually be paying less once that contract comes up. So we'd miss out on both losses and gains. So it's a very safe bet, and there's nothing extra we would have to pay for that. The second one is the option contract, and that's really the one that I'm leaning towards because although it costs something in a premium, so when we finally do exercise that option, we would pay a premium, but we can have an option to say that we'll pay it at, say, 18 pesos per US dollar. But then, if the peso weakens a lot and goes up to 21 pesos per US dollar, for example, then we can take advantage of that and we can not exercise the contract and we can simply just pay less and buy more pesos with each US dollar. And so I think since that really, in this really environment where there's a lot of spikes, I suggest that we go with the option contract so that we can really take advantage whether it goes down a lot or goes up a lot, the US dollar strengthening or weakening. We can take advantages of both sides. So that's what I suggest for today. Thank you very much.